Hey chicks, let's chat. Hope y'all having a good Saturday. I am in the Central Florida area and it looks like it's about to rain. But let me get to it. Actually, one of the comments in one of my last videos inspired the topic that I'm about to cover. Right? So let's get into it. Black women and the men that we love, right? That seems simple enough, right? But not really, not always. The comment that I kind of am piggybacking off of is it was about, me mentioning that I kind of, that I was dealing with street dudes or whatever, and that they had, they knew that they were supposed to take care of everything, etc., so forth. So the comment was about that. So what I explained to the person was that, one thing I'm not gonna do is get on here and lie. Now a whole lot of that go on YouTube. From my understanding, these people be making up all kind of ridiculous stories, and boy, they capture their audience, their numbers go up, and they do all of that, for the check. Listen, this ain't my main job, and until I start getting paid in that way, ain't nowhere in the world. Even if I did get paid in that way, ain't no way in the world I'm going to get on here and lie, because people know you in real life. My integrity and my name mean more than that to me, right? So, even when it comes to like, I like the entertainment, skits and all of that stuff too. I would love to do some of that, but at the same time, it has to always be an element of truth and keeping it real in whatever it is that I'm doing, because that's just who I am. So I can't get on here and share stories and be transparent and keep certain things out, at like certain things didn't happen, didn't transpire. I would love to get on here and paint a wonderful picture, and the grass was always green on my side, etc., so forth. But then who would really learn anything from me? You know what I'm saying? That's not life for anybody. Sure, some people have had better lives than others, and they have been able to omit certain things out of their life, avoid certain things, and that's wonderful, but the reality is that a life been life for generations for most of us, so having said that, I wanted to get into why we deal with the men that we deal with. And first and foremost, I feel like, when you were coming up at a time when I came up, which was before the internet, your picks were who you were surrounded by, who was picking you and who you were able to pick from. It only entailed who you were around on a day-to-day basis, or maybe who you would see every now and then. You may have went, had a boyfriend at another school that, y'all didn't really see each other that much, but maybe y'all was on the phone every night or something like that. And then if the fact came or something came where everybody went to it, y'all saw each other, or y'all planned to meet up, but basically you picking from who you're around. That happens twice in life. It happens when you're younger, and it also happens as you get older and you're settled where you are. Because at some point as you get older, you're not really interested in long distance relationships. So, if you have to, your preference is going to be that you find somebody within the area that you're living in, or at least close by, within, close driving distance or something like that, So a lot of times when you coming through you coming up, who you have to pick from are the people who are right there at your fingertips. Now that you have the internet, okay, well, you you know, as far and wide as you can go, you know, as far and wide as your travel points can take you, you can pick. But then again, like I said, you're still gonna come to a point at some point where you want that person to be right there or within close proximity. Most people. Now, some people don't mind doing the long distance thing or whatever, but like I said, eventually it's still gonna come to the same thing. If you really want to deal with that person, you're gonna want them present, right? Close proximity. So a lot of times, you know, when I'm coming up, like I have shared before, you know, I chose a lot of times to be in the neighborhood where my grandmother was living, even though I was living with my dad. I chose to be around, you know, my grandmother's neighborhood. I chose to go to school from my grandmother's neighborhood. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I was allowed to do. And I pretty much had those options because for the most part, I was a good girl. Did well in school, stayed out of trouble, outside of fighting. You know, I wasn't stealing, I wasn't going to jail, I wasn't doing no foolishness. The worst I was doing was dealing with the guys that, you know, was around in the neighborhood. So a lot of who I had to pick from, you know, at some point they probably was going to school, and then eventually they stopped going to school. And when I got into that 16, 17 age range, then okay, I'm dealing with dudes that's older than me. You know, they're older than me and they in the street. So that's just what it was, you know. And it wasn't that I didn't like guys in school, but I didn't like guys that went to my school. Because why? Because whatever y'all did, it always came out in the school. Everybody always ended up knowing what everybody had going on. So that was one thing I did not like to do, is deal with guys that went to my school. So by the time I really dealt with a guy that went to my school, that was like my 12th grade year. And really nobody knew that but us. And that continued on for decades. But, you know, again, most of who I was, you know, picking from and who was attracted to me, they were, you know, young adult guys that really wasn't doing anything with their life, truth be told. You know, and even in those moments, because they're so young, they're not planning on doing what they're doing for the rest of their life. Now, did it end up that way for some of them? Yeah. But even then, you know, you being told like, hey, I'm just gonna do this until the summer. I'm just gonna do this until Christmas come. You know, I heard all those, I'm gonna stop. Why? Because they knew that that really wasn't the life. But at the same time, as long as the money was good and the money was coming, hey, they got trapped into it their own self. You know, because your good young years have been wasted away in the streets. You haven't learned any new skills. And, you know, and the skills that you have learned, a lot of those skills you actually can translate them into, you know, a regular job. But who wants a regular job? When you used to making buku money within, you know, a little bit of time, who wants to go and wait for a paycheck for 2 weeks? Like, you know, one dude that I was dealing with, he told me out the gate, and this was back when $10 was a big deal. He said I could talk a person out of $10 an hour. I never worked for that. Okay, so that shows you how long ago that was, that $10 was a thing. But you know, what could my response be to that at that age? You know, he had already decided that that was nothing that he was interested in. He liked the money that was coming, and that's what, and that was that, you know. And even to this day, like, he'll always tease me, yeah, you wanted your old doctor, you wanted your old lawyer. It wasn't that I wanted a doctor or a lawyer. I just knew that for the long term, I could not bring a guy that was in the streets into my family. That was never going to work with my dad. That was never going to work with my family in general, because they always felt like, hey, you could do better than that. You should be doing better than that. You know, even my mom had, you know, spent a lot of times in her addiction. And even during those times, she would say to me, I don't know why you would want to deal with a man that's in the streets, especially the ones that's selling, because there's always going to be plenty of women around them because the women want the money. I don't know why you would do that. I don't even like those kind of men. Of course, I thought that was a little hypocritical of her, but I understand the sentiment. As you get older, you understand that because you've seen some things by the time you get a little older. So yeah, and it was the one particular guy that I was dealing with. My grandma couldn't stand that joker. Oh, she ain't like him. And it's like, as I got older, I was like, hey, why did you despise him? And she was like, because you was too good for him. And I was like, man, I never thought of myself too good for anyone. But I guess from a parent's perspective, they do feel like their kids are better than certain situations and certain people, getting entangled with certain people. So I can understand that. And now, being older. And of course, nobody's looking at it like, oh, they're just, that's who they are right now. They're going to be different later on in life. No. How you're showing up presently, what you're doing, that's what they care about. They don't care about what you got potential to do later on in life, because they already know that later on in life, a lot of y'all still going to be doing the same things. And that's why I say it's dangerous to get caught up into loving and being in relationships with certain guys, especially when they have, illegal tendencies, because, you get used to certain things, and a prison sentence will change all of that. A death sentence will change all of that just that swift. Now life happens to us all, it's people that we went to college with that passed too, or they end up getting in trouble with the law or whatever. So it can happen, but of course, when you poking about, then things going to be happening a lot more often to you, or at more of a rapid pace, And sometimes people just, there are people who really do avoid certain things. Like the guy that I'm saying, like he always teased me about, I want a doctor, a lawyer. He was like, look, I've been out all this time. We could have still been together. He always would say that, But who would have wanted to deal with all them different women for years and years? And, who would have wanted to be scared all the time that, even if the police didn't come, the robbers was coming? Who would have wanted to deal with that? Like, So, it was, when my taste started changing in men, that was a good thing for me, right? That was a good thing for me. I felt like, okay, this is my tribe right here. I could pick from some of these jokers, And I never thought that they were lame or anything like that because they were working, I never thought negative or down towards any guy that wasn't in the streets. I never, or anybody that wasn't making fast money. They didn't look any different to me. My whole thing was, how do you treat me? Because I didn't care if you was in the street and you treated me bad. That's just as bad as you having a job treating me bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, so a lot of times I think that the guys that we love and fall in love with, initially it has to do with how they're treating us and how close in proximity they are to us. Sometimes it's more easier than you think to fall in love with a street guy because he can pour it on real thick. He can buy you, he can take you, he can wine and dine and 69, and everything is just wonderful, and it becomes hard for you to, say, well, you know what, he ain't got no job, because he's treating you so well, and that becomes more important to you than what he's doing with his life, because at the point where you love him or fall in love with him, then you start thinking about all kind of other things that he could possibly do, even even though he ain't interested in doing none of those things that you thinking about. But you saying, I can't stay with him while he's doing nothing. So one or both of us got to come up with something that he can do so that I can continue to deal with him. But guess what? The reality is that nothing changes until that person want to change. Now, every now and then, I guess a guy may like you enough to change, but even then, he has to already be thinking about wanting to change, right? And then certain situations and circumstances have to line up for him to be able to do that. And a lot of times, you know, women will put everything on the line trying to help him come out of the street. Sometimes that works. Sometimes it benefits her when she does that. Sometimes it don't benefit her. It benefits the woman that comes after her. So, you know, it's a lot that comes with, you know, loving a man and finding the right one. And what I learned too was that, you know what? A lot of these guys who have regular good jobs, etc., so forth, they look at themselves as the pig. And they just as harsh as street dudes. And we ain't even gonna get into the ones that's married. Good job, good benefits in some kind of way or another. But they don't mind cheating. You know, so everybody coming with something. That's what I have learned. Everybody coming with something. And everybody is going to put a bug in your ear about the things they don't like. You know, and try to shape your mind and mold your mind so that you can like the things they like. And you can move how they move. Well, that's not how life works. You know. Because my dad always put bugs in my ear about, you know, not dealing with street dudes. But I wasn't trying to hear that because street dudes, they was choosing and they were being good to me. So, you know, until I stopped wanting that, until I had reason to, you know, make different choices. And it wasn't, like I say, it took a minute for me to really come up out of that. I mean, I came up out of it once I kind of went to college. But then when I seen, like, okay, well, he a problem just like the dudes I was dealing with. Only difference is their career path. Well, if I got to deal with some headaches anyway, then this over here don't look as bad. You know? And all of that I say, you know, it takes you to get older and more mature to start saying, well, you know what? The reality is that I don't have to deal with either one of them. Truth be told. And if I'm going to deal with one of them, then I'm not going to deal with anything that would jeopardize the fact that I don't put all my time and years into trying to, you know, get a degree, trying to live right, trying to make the best choices that I can. There's no way that I'm going to be willing to sacrifice all of that for somebody kicking in my door. For, you know, a robber, you know, shooting, killing him, me, them, everybody, leaving no witnesses. It's just some things I was willing to sacrifice for and some things I wasn't willing to sacrifice for any longer. You know, and the sad thing comes when you have to make that decision and say this person ain't for me because of the career path that they're choosing. And I don't see them having enough ambition to do anything else with their life. I can't stay in this no more. If I stay in it, I'm not ever gonna leave. So I gotta leave when I feel like I can. Even that's hard when you've been doing it for so long. You know. So the other part of that is that, you know, because it's gonna be people who listen to this and say, you know, oh, I never dealt with a street man and I never want to. Yeah, you might did because you raised one. Or your daughter likes them. Or the children that you have raised, they've had one. Your grandson is a street person. Now, see, what I noticed too is that when that street person is not your love interest, a lot of y'all parents and grandparents sing a different tune. So you might didn't like them. They was beneath you to be involved with. But when they're your grandkids and your kids, or y'all make up all the excuses in the world for them jokers then. Where's the lie? And some of y'all may call out and say, oh yeah, well I tell them that they ain't got no business doing this, doing that. You ain't turning down no money from them. Every blue moon I meet a woman that'll say they won't take no money from their sons or daughters that's in the street. Every blue moon, but that's so rare. You know how that man get that money, and you hand out. You gonna take it. And then you're going to use that scripture in the Bible about, the money, the stuff that's laid up for the just and the unjust, all that, okay? See, it's different when they come out your loins, And then a lot of times I don't even understand because, I have seen parents speak against it in one way, but then co-sign it in another way, right? You're speaking against it when it's your love interest, but you running down to the jailhouse every time you make it every court date. You sending money to for commissary, for you know what I'm saying? What side do you stand on? You for it or you not? See, sometimes it get a little gray, don't it? So that's why for me, you have to be careful of the boxes that you put people in, because you don't never know when you're going to be dealing with that thing, those situations. A lot of times, like I say, people look down on the things that is not their cup of tea. And it's easy to put down situations and circumstances that's not your cup of tea. But then, when you're forced to deal with it, then now you got all kind of excuses and reasons and rationale. And, they didn't have a dad, and, this and that. But when I was trying to say it and explain and have some understanding for it, or when your daughter, when your son was trying to explain, so you have to be mindful. Everybody have their issues, ain't no way around it. That's life. But I don't recommend any woman to, be affiliated with street guys or to, be in the streets themselves, because it's just so many dangers that come with it. But it's no way to avoid it either. It's no way to avoid, women not dealing with guys that's in the streets. Because why? Like I said, a lot of times some of them, they treat you well, and the core of them may be good guys, but they just picking the wrong path, right? And the flip side of that too, like I said, is that I have made guys great, wonderful jobs, and a slap fire at you, right? I'll call you all kind of names. But he has a great job. He presents well. He has more degrees than a thermometer, and he looks good on paper. Looks like he's supposed to be someone's husband, and could be crazy as all get out. Controlling, possessive, bad hygiene, but you look phenomenal on paper. You really do. Yeah. So the other part that I've learned as I got older is that some of us women are living in the wrong areas, right? The kind of men that we desire, it's just not an abundance of them in the area that we live. So unless we settle for something that we do not absolutely want, we just may be single. Unless we relocate to areas where the type of men that we want to date are in abundance. And when I'm saying type of men, I'm not talking about unrealistic stuff. I'm talking about, hey, you got a decent job and you're ambitious, you want to have some things in life, got some good moral standards, a good moral compass. You don't have no kids that you can't take care of. You don't have any issues that's out of control with your ex-wives, with your baby mamas, your situationships. You ain't nasty to the core. A woman can she can actually trust you around her friends and her sisters and her, good girlfriends, that you're not going to make passes at them. You're not going to end up in bed with them. Ain't no Tubi movie stuff going on. Like, sometimes women really ain't asking for too much, but sometimes you really are in the wrong area, because a lot of what you may be asking for, those kind of guys, they haven't been raised like that in the area that you are in. Because I don't know, I just think that certain areas that what you got to pay from is just not that great. And I do believe that it's certain areas that it's just like, goodness gracious. Ooh, who do I pick? Oh, y'all got some good jobs. Yes, I love it. But yeah, so be mindful. Be mindful of the stigmas that people place on other people. You never know when you may be dealing with certain situations yourself. You never know when your kids may come across some, or your grandkids may come across some. And one thing about it, I'm not ever promoting negativity